Hi, so I'm here with one finished and one almost half-finished sketchbook to do a tip video. Full transparency, I'm kind of sick today, so I couldn't really draw, but I still wanted to do something creative, so I thought I'd just make a video, and I had some ideas written down anyway. I'm really sorry for waving my hands. I saw a comment under somebody else's sketchbook tour saying that they get annoyed with people waving their hands and like talking a lot and those kinds of things, and it made me feel really insecure about my sketchbook tour, so I'm gonna try and keep my wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man hands out of frame and just wave them behind my phone. Anyway, that's off topic. So yeah, that's the intro. Also follow my TikTok, please. Bye. Okay, so my first tip is to skip the first page of a sketchbook. These are my first pages of my two most recent sketchbooks, and as you can see, they're not following this tip, but they actually are. I didn't paint this until I'd been working on this sketchbook for like a couple weeks, I think. I just left this blank, so there wouldn't be any pressure, and I could go ahead and start a few pages later over here. And that's why the start date is like 3 pages in. Ignore this. I love this. This I skipped until actually just yesterday, and I've been working in this sketchbook for like over a month now. And I tried to do like a meet the artist on this page, but I was like, you know what? That's too much pressure, and I kept failing. So I turned to my favorite technique, which is cover the entire page in black and then put a sticker on it. He's a blobby guy with Posca pens. So yeah, I like that tip because I like procrastinating, and this is actually a really good use of procrastination. So there we go. My next tip is to turn the page around, like rotate your sketchbook for a fresh perspective. Like when I do squares like this that are going in a different direction than the page, it's usually because I had put a strip here, like I had made a rectangle here. I always make the frame before I do the actual drawing, sorry for the wavy hands. And then I get kind of like confused as to what I'm gonna put there. And I think I started to draw a room here, and I hated it, so I just took it, flipped it around, and I was like, oh my god, I have another idea now, and it works out like that sometimes. I did it all the time in this sketchbook because it was a landscape sketchbook, and I liked using it in portrait and getting more space. I switched to a portrait sketchbook because, and this is another tip, it takes up less space, and you could just flip it around. Like, with this one, no matter what way I used it, it took up more space, even though it's the exact same A4 size as the other one, or A5, I forget. This one's the same size, just the other way, and I can turn it like this, and I still have more room for my stuff, like if I'm drawing in public. But yeah, turning it around, get a fresh perspective, and you might get more ideas like that. It's just a thing that I do all the time. Sometimes I forget it's actually kind of a useful piece of information. But yeah, there's that tip. My next tip is not to do a finished piece on every page. I know there's like a scale among artists who keep a sketchbook of people who on one hand they fill every page with like a beautiful finished work, and then on the other side you have the people who don't do any of that in their sketchbook at all, and I'm probably like more towards the finished work side, but I still think that you shouldn't put that much pressure on every page, because I always start out with the frames, and sometimes there are a lot of pressure. Like on a page where I have a comic or something, like this page, I made the rectangles first, and then I was like, okay, now what do I put in them? And that can be a lot of pressure sometimes, so sometimes just not doing that, and just doing stuff that needs done, like swatching, finding a place for this beautiful magazine clipping, hand practice, a random sketch that was in a different book. This one, I think I intended to do a comic behind the character because it was a format I haven't tried, and I just didn't like how it turned out. I wasn't very inspired, and so I just used it to swatch for the other half of the page, and it did more for me that way. So yeah, that's tip 3 or 4 or whatever. So my next tip is to make stickers. These aren't real stickers, these are just drawings I did on paper that needed used and stuck them in on pages that needed some love. Like, both of these pages have a lot in common, where this one I messed up on the actual page, put a magazine over it, and then put my little devil stickers, and this guy, he's so cute. And I really like it now. It's like a little collage of just these adorable guys. And this is a TV I did to practice Posca markers the other day, and I freaking love it. And I hated this page. Sometimes a page just gets cursed. That's advice all on its own, is to recognize when you have come upon a page that is not going to turn out. Like, you've done everything, you've erased 10,000 times, and now there's graphite and craters in the pages, like divots where graphite has been, and there's just no saving it. So then you cover it up, you put a sticker, that way your art's on the page, you've used it to its potential, made a little collage, and then you can move on and work on a page that isn't literally cursed by the art devil. That's actually, I think that might be original advice. I haven't seen anybody else say that, but I use this all the time. This is a page out of my permit book. Don't look at that and think I didn't study. I had already made separate flashcards, but that's unrelated. But yeah, just know that I wasn't wasting that. I had already copied that information somewhere. Go along with the sticker advice, I thought I'd show this page. This is a different use of that sort of same idea, where in this one, I didn't originally plan for this to be an entire room drawing. I was just drawing this girl, and then it kept spiraling from there, and I really love it. I did it with Gonzai, but that's unrelated. Moving on. This square over here is where I had drawn something else. I messed up. It wasn't originally part of the room. It needed to be covered in order for me to continue the page. And yeah, I just taped in a square from a different watercolor paper I had. And it's a sketchbook. It doesn't have to look like super professional. It's okay to do stuff like that. You could still get the idea across, and you don't have to like give up on what could have been a really good square of nonsense. I mean, seriously, look at these. These Polaroids are nothing. They're so big, but I love them anyway, and they're awesome, and they added to the piece, even though they're nothing. Yeah, that's it for that. Okay, so this is a tip I feel like I needed at one point, and was not available to me. Nobody was saying this, and so I'm gonna say it. You don't need to buy fixative if you don't have it. Like, a lot of people, there's all these hacks online for if you don't have fixative, like use hairspray and then it ruins your drawing, and people complaining about how those hacks don't work and stuff like that. Here's my way to hack it: put plastic over it. It's one less piece of plastic that's going to end up in the ocean, and it's protecting this graphite drawing, because I don't want to spend money on fixative when I don't usually do graphite drawings. And then adding on to that, I wish I'd done that over here, because I've discovered that Poscas leave a residue on the other side of the page. Bonus tip, that got everywhere over here, even though it was dry, and which is upsetting because this is a drawing that I really like. So yeah, be careful with your Posca drawings, and you can cover things up with spare plastic, and then it doesn't end up in the ocean, and unless you throw your sketchbook in the ocean, which I wouldn't really recommend. Don't do that. It's probably also pollution. Next tip, I think this is the last one, and that's to use a sketchbook that works for the medium you're using. This one seems obvious, but you'll notice over time when you try new mediums that something is wrong and you won't like a medium, and it's just because it's not the paper for it. This is a watercolor drawing on watercolor paper. It looks the best it could have looked. It's a little splotchy, but that's actually because the paint is granulating, and I didn't take that into consideration. Yeah, notice with these Posca drawings, there are no Posca drawings on the paper of the sketchbook. They're always taped in, and that's because they don't work on this paper. This is an Etchlab sketchbook. It's cotton paper. It's wonderful for watercolor. It's horrible for Poscas. And you'd think, oh, it's great paper, so it will work for everything, but it might not, because, different materials have different paper needs. I think this is Canson XL paper. It didn't really perform the way I wanted it to for watercolor. It left a weird line around everything that works for some people, doesn't work for me. I didn't like it, not crazy about it, but it's amazing for the Poscas. It's the only paper I've found that actually holds up against them to any extent, which is amazing. I have some bad paper lying around that works really good for graphite and ink drawings. Like, you'll find that sometimes with cheap paper. Ink looks amazing on cheap, terrible paper for some reason. So that's something to think about. Sometimes that random on sale Master's Touch sketchbook at Hobby Lobby, if you support them, is actually amazing for pen. And that, yeah, maybe don't spend as much money if you don't use a material that you need an expensive sketchbook for. As a side note, I do really recommend the Etcher sketchbook. Don't mind this drawing on the front. I really hate it, and it does not represent the bulk of my art. But yeah, these are both Etcher sketchbooks. I've been using them for a couple years. I totally understand if you can't afford these. There are a bunch of really good alternatives. The Canson XL paper is actually really good. I just didn't like the line it left around things. That's the only complaint I had about it, but I think it would actually be really good for a beginner. I still use it to swatch sometimes if I need to see my colors. So don't think that it's bad. It's still good, and you don't need to feel gatekeeped if you don't have the money for this kind of thing. I'm not rich. I get these for Christmas presents, and I hoard them, and they supply me until next year. So yeah, I think this is where I'm gonna close out the video. I don't know how long this is because I filmed it in clips. I'm doing really good on storage space, so I'm gonna be filming more. I have a lot of video ideas, and I'd like to close out the year with a video going over some of the supplies I really liked for 2022. I've already got them written down, so I'm going to film that soon and get that out mid-January, probably. I don't know, maybe in December. It's just, I know I'm going to be getting some new supplies for my birthday, which is in December, and I want to try those out and see if those might go on my list. But yeah, stick around if you like my art. Not that, maybe that. But yeah, if you like my art, stick around. I make a lot of videos, especially on TikTok, where I'm sketch_heaven. So yeah, you have a beautiful day. The lovely people who actually click on my videos, because I appreciate all of you. Bye.